Everything you were taught about human progress assumes a direction: primitive to advanced, hunter to farmer, cave to city. The assumption is so deeply embedded in how we think about history that we rarely notice it is an assumption at all, not a fact, not a law, not something that archaeology has confirmed. Just a story we tell about ourselves, in which the end point is always us, and everything before us is a step toward becoming us. There are people alive right now who are not steps toward anything. Not because they failed to progress, not because they were left behind, but because the lifestyle they maintain, the same lifestyle their ancestors maintained for tens of thousands of years before the first city was ever built, works. It solves the problems of survival, community, identity, and meaning with a precision that urban civilization has been trying to replicate with increasingly complicated machinery for 10,000 years, with limited success. Some of these communities have been genetically altered by their lifestyle. Their bodies have changed, organs enlarged, lung capacity expanded, cognitive architecture reorganized in ways that biologists are still mapping. Some of them speak languages that have no concept of time as a linear sequence. Some of them have rejected every attempt at contact for over a century and continue to do so by force. Some of them are the direct, unbroken genetic line from the humans who were the first of our species and whose DNA is the ancestor of everyone alive today. 10 communities, all of them living right now, and none of them waiting to become us. Number 10. The Tsaatan, Mongolia. In the subarctic taiga of northern Mongolia, within 5 kilometers of the Russian border, there are approximately 40 families who have lived with reindeer for so long that the distinction between the human community and the reindeer herd has become almost impossible to draw cleanly. The Tsaatan, the name means reindeer people in Mongolian, are one of the last nomadic reindeer herding cultures on Earth. They number fewer than 500 people in total. They live in teepee-like structures called orts, which they dismantle and rebuild approximately 10 times per year as they follow their herds across terrain that drops to -50 degrees Celsius in winter. They do not farm. They do not build permanent structures. They do not stay in any location long enough for the land to register their presence after they leave. Their relationship with reindeer is not pastoral in the modern sense. The reindeer are not livestock in any framework that an agricultural civilization would recognize. The Tsaatan do not primarily eat their reindeer. They drink their milk, use their hides for clothing and shelter, and ride them as transportation across terrain that horses cannot navigate. A Tsaatan family's wealth, social standing, and physical survival are all directly correlated with the health of their herd. When the herd moves, the family moves. There is no alternative. The Tsaatan have maintained this relationship with their animals through the Mongol Empire, through Soviet collectivization, which attempted to forcibly settle them in the 1950s and nearly destroyed their culture through the collapse of the Soviet Union, and through the arrival of mobile phones and ecotourism, both of which now coexist with shamanism and reindeer herding in the same community. They are the last culture on Earth for whom the reindeer is not food, not a product, and not a symbol. It is a family member with a different number of legs. Number 9. The San Bushmen, Southern Africa. The oldest, continuously inhabited place on Earth is not a city. It is not a monument. It is not a temple. It is a stretch of the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa, where archaeological evidence suggests continuous hunter-gatherer occupation for at least 100,000 years longer than modern Homo sapiens has existed as a distinct species anywhere else on the planet. The San people are among the earliest branches of the human family tree that are still alive. Genetic studies have confirmed that the San carry DNA lineages that diverged from the rest of humanity over 100,000 years ago, making them, in a precise genomic sense, among the most ancient, distinct populations on Earth. The rest of humanity, including every other person reading or watching this, is genetically derived from populations that branched off from a San-related lineage at some point in the past. The San, who still maintain a traditional lifestyle, a shrinking number, under increasing pressure from development and displacement, live in small bands of 20 to 50 people, moving across the Kalahari following seasonal water and game. They track animals by reading the ground, interpreting footprints, disturbed vegetation, animal behavior, and atmospheric conditions with a precision that researchers who have studied them describe as a cognitive system more complex than it appears. A sand tracker reading a trail is not following a set of memorized signs. They are building a real-time mental model of an animal's physical and psychological state, updated continuously as new information arrives. Their click-based language, which uses sounds that no other language family on Earth employs as consonants, is estimated to be among the oldest continuously used linguistic systems in the world. The Kalahari was not where the San ended up, it is where they began, and they have been there since before the concept of a beginning existed. Number 8. The Korowai, Papua. Until 1974, the Korowai people of the lowland rainforest of what is now the Indonesian province of Papua did not know that any human beings existed outside their own community. When Dutch missionaries made first contact that year, the Korowai's initial response was to classify the outsiders not as humans but as lalio, a term from their belief system referring to demon spirits that wore the skins of dead people. The missionaries' pale skin and strange behavior fit the description well enough that integration was not immediate. The Korowai number approximately 3,000 people, spread across a remote section of swamp forest that is accessible only by small plane or multi-day river journey. They live in tree houses built between 20 and 50 meters above the forest floor heights that serve a practical purpose, keeping the community above the insects, the flooding, and historically, the territory of neighboring groups. The engineering of a Korowai treehouse is precise enough that structures have been documented standing for decades without collapse. They are built entirely from forest materials: ironwood for structural posts, sago palm for floors and walls, pandanus leaves for roofing using tools made from stone, bone, and bamboo. No metal. No synthetic materials. The construction methods are passed down by observation and practice, not instruction. The Korowai diet is built around sago palm, a starch extracted by pounding the interior of the palm trunk and washing the pulp through a filter, producing a dense caloric product that requires significant labor but provides reliable nutrition in an environment where conventional agriculture is impossible. Supplemented by hunting, fishing, and forest gathering, it has sustained the Korowai through conditions that would end most agricultural communities within a season. They were here before anyone knew they were here. They did not need to be found. Number 7. The Pirahã, Amazon, Brazil. The Pirahã are a small hunter-gatherer community living along the Maiki River in the Brazilian Amazon, numbering approximately 400 people. They were not unusual by the standards of Amazonian indigenous communities until a linguist named Daniel Everett arrived to study their language in the 1970s and discovered that the Pirahã language violates almost every assumption about how human language is structured. The Pirahã language has no numbers, not a limited counting system, no counting system at all. It has no color terms. It has no perfect tense, no grammatical mechanism for describing events that are not directly witnessed or immediately relevant. It has no concept of recursion in the sense that Noam Chomsky described as the defining feature of all human language, the ability to embed clauses within clauses to create infinite complexity. What it does have is a feature called immediacy of experience. The language constrains speakers to describing only what they or someone they know directly witnessed. History, in the sense of events that occurred before living memory, is linguistically inaccessible. Planning for a distant future is linguistically inaccessible. The Pirahã experience of time is immediate, present, and grounded in direct evidence. Everett spent decades with the Pirahã. He attempted to teach them to count. He ran structured experiments over months. He reports that no Pirahã individual has ever successfully learned to count to 10, not because of cognitive limitation, but because the concept does not connect to anything in their cognitive world. They are not missing numbers. Numbers are missing from the description of a world that does not require them. Everett's findings remain controversial in linguistics. What is not controversial is this: a community of 400 people has maintained a way of thinking about time, language, and knowledge that is so different from every other documented human cognitive system that 40 years of academic debate have not resolved whether it represents a different language or evidence that language itself is not what we thought it was. Number 6. The Bajau. Southeast Asia. The Bajau people of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia have lived on the ocean for over 1,000 years, not near the ocean, not from the ocean. On it in houseboats that rarely touched land, fishing the coral reefs of the Coral Triangle with handcrafted wooden goggles and simple spears, diving to depths that most humans cannot reach without mechanical assistance. The most experienced Bajau divers can reach depths of 70 meters and remain submerged for up to 13 minutes on a single breath. They spend more than 60% of their working hours underwater. They have been doing this not for generations, but for enough generations that the ocean has begun to change them at a biological level, that a 2018 study published in the journal Cell by geneticist Melissa Ilardo of the University of Copenhagen was the first to document. The Bajau have spleens 50% larger than those of neighboring communities who do not dive. This is not a training adaptation. Non-diving Bajau have the same enlarged spleen as those who dive daily. It is a genetic change present in a gene called PDE10A that regulates thyroid hormones, which in turn regulate spleen size. The spleen stores oxygenated red blood cells. When the Bajau dive, their spleen contracts, releasing that stored supply into circulation, extending the time they can function without breathing. Their bodies have physically evolved to do what their lifestyle requires. Evolution is typically described as a process that takes hundreds of thousands of years to produce visible results. The Bajau are a counterargument, a population whose genome has measurably changed in response to a specific lifestyle practiced over 1,000 years. Their spleen is not an adaptation from prehistoric times. It is an adaptation from the medieval period. The ocean changed them, and the change is written in their DNA. Number 5. The Hadza, Tanzania. Everything so far in this video has shown communities living outside the mainstream of human civilization. What comes next is not outside the mainstream. It is the origin of it. The Hadza of northern Tanzania number approximately 1,300 people. They live around Lake Eyasi in the Great Rift Valley, in the landscape where Homo sapiens first emerged as a species. They are hunter-gatherers. They do not farm, do not herd animals, do not store food, and do not live in permanent structures. They have not adopted any of these practices despite being aware that neighboring communities use them. Archaeological evidence suggests that hunter-gatherers similar to the Hadza have occupied the Lake Eyasi region continuously for at least 50,000 years. The Hadza's own oral history does not describe a migration to their current territory. They describe no origin story that places them anywhere else. This is where their people have always been. Genetically, the Hadza are one of the most isolated populations on Earth. They have no known close genetic relationship to any neighboring group. Their Y DNA is dominated by haplogroup B, one of the oldest surviving Y chromosome lineages in our species, suggesting that the Hadza represent a continuous male line descent from the earliest modern humans in East Africa. Their language is a click language, a linguistic isolate unrelated to any other language family on Earth, including other click languages. It exists as its own complete linguistic system, disconnected from every other human language that has ever been documented. They navigate by the stars. They track animals across dry ground using methods that professional wildlife trackers describe as the most sophisticated environmental reading system they have ever studied. They cooperate in honey hunting by following a bird, the greater honey guide, that leads them to beehives in exchange for a share of the wax. This relationship between a human community and a wild bird, maintained across generations, is one of only 2 documented cases of a human-wildlife cooperative hunting relationship on Earth. The Hadza are not a remnant of a dead world. They are a continuous living presence in the landscape where humanity began. They were here first. They are here still. Number 4. The Dukha, Mongolia and Russia border. Distinct from but related to the Tsaatan, the Dukha are a Turkic-speaking community of roughly 280 people living in the Kovsgale province of Mongolia. Like the Tsaatan, they are reindeer herders, but their relationship with shamanism distinguishes them in ways that researchers have found difficult to document. The Dukha maintain one of the last functioning shamanistic traditions in Central Asia, in which the shaman is not a ceremonial figure, but an operational one, consulted for medical decisions, for weather prediction before migration, for conflict resolution, and for communication with the spirits of animals that have been hunted. The shaman's role is not ritual, it is practical. Dukha shamans use a drum whose design, materials, and playing technique have not changed in any documented way for as long as the tradition has been recorded. The drum is not decorative, it is a tool. The Dukha population is declining, and with it, the pool of people who have internalized the full knowledge system, the migration routes, the animal behavior, the medicinal plant knowledge, the shamanic practice that the community requires to function. When the last person who knows something forgets it, it is gone. Not archived, not digitized, not stored anywhere. Gone. Every generation is the last generation that will know everything the previous generation knew. Number 3. The Sentinelese, North Sentinel Island. There is an island in the Bay of Bengal, 23 square miles in size, surrounded by coral reef, covered in dense forest, and protected by the Indian Navy. On it live between 50 and 500 people. The estimate varies, because nobody has ever counted them, who have declined every attempt at contact with the outside world with a consistency that spans centuries, and whose last well-documented interaction with an outsider, in 2018, ended with that person being killed by arrows on the beach. The Sentinelese have been aware of the outside world for at least 2 centuries. They know ships exist, they have watched them approach, been photographed from aircraft, and in 1991, accepted coconuts from Indian government anthropologists, who were able to approach close enough to hand them into the surf. None of these encounters changed the fundamental posture of the Sentinelese toward contact, unwanted. Their language is unknown. Nobody outside their community has ever heard enough of it to analyze its structure. Their religion is unknown. Their social organization is unknown. Their population is unknown. Their origin, whether they migrated from Africa directly or via the Andaman Islands, is genetically probable but not confirmed. What is known is this: the Sentinelese have been on North Sentinel Island for an estimated 60,000 years based on the genomic evidence for the Andamanese peoples more broadly. They arrived when the Bay of Bengal had a different coastline, when the island was part of a larger landmass connected to the Asian continent. They watched the sea level rise and the land contract around them into an island. They have been on that island for longer than writing has existed anywhere. The Indian government has established a 5-kilometer exclusion zone around the island. Approach is illegal. The Indian Navy patrols it. The Sentinelese patrol it themselves. They are not isolated. They chose isolation. Those are different things. Number 2. The Moken, Andaman Sea. The Moken are a semi-nomadic sea people of the Andaman Sea, living across the archipelagos that straddle the border of Myanmar and Thailand. They number approximately 2,000 people and have been living on boats and in temporary beach settlements for at least 4,000 years. The Moken are known in the scientific literature primarily for one documented biological adaptation that has been studied since a 2003 paper published in Current Biology by Anna Gislén of Lund University, Sweden. Moken children can see underwater with a precision that non-diving children cannot match and cannot be trained to match. The human eye is optimized for vision in air. Submerged in water, the eye loses its refractive ability and vision blurs. This is universal in humans who did not grow up diving. Gislén's study measured the underwater visual acuity of Moken children against Swedish children as a control. The Moken children demonstrated visual acuity underwater that was twice as sharp as the Swedish children, a difference that held across all age groups tested. Gislén found that the Moken children were actively constricting their pupils and changing their lens shape when submerged, a response that does not occur in non-diving populations. The paper concluded that the ability was learned, not genetic, that the Moken children had developed this visual adaptation through years of underwater activity beginning in early childhood. Follow-up research found that European children who underwent extended underwater vision training could partially develop the same ability but never to the same degree, and only with sustained practice. The Moken children do not train for it. They simply grow up in the water, and their eyes learn what water requires of them. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami destroyed most Moken settlements. The Moken had no modern warning systems. They also had no casualties. They read the behavior of the sea, the unusual retreat of the tide, the behavior of the dolphins, and moved to high ground before the wave arrived. Knowledge accumulated over 4,000 years of ocean observation produced a warning system that outperformed the official one. Number 1. The Awa, Amazon, Brazil. In the state of Maranhão in northeastern Brazil, the most endangered tribe on earth is being killed. Not metaphorically, not slowly, actively, by loggers, by ranchers, by land grabbers who entered protected indigenous territory and began clearing it, and who in documented cases have killed Awa individuals who attempted to resist. Survival International, the indigenous rights organization that has documented the Awa situation most extensively, has described them as the world's most threatened people. That designation is not based on population size. The Awa number approximately 450, with around 100 of that total being completely uncontacted. It is based on the rate and nature of the threat to their existence. The Awa are semi-nomadic hunter-gatherers who have lived in the Amazon rainforest for as long as any record of them exists. They hunt with 6-foot bows. They gather forest products. They move through territory that they know with the intimacy of a people who have navigated the same forest for generations, reading it in ways that outside observers consistently describe as extraordinary, not as tracking skill but as comprehensive ecological knowledge. The kind of knowledge that requires continuous contact with a single ecosystem across multiple human lifetimes to accumulate. What makes the Awa unusual even among Amazonian forest peoples is their relationship with the animals they live among. Awa women routinely adopt and nurse orphaned animals, primates, birds, small mammals, not as pets in any modern sense but as members of the community, incorporated into daily life, carried during travel, nursed alongside human infants. Researchers who have spent time in Awa communities describe this practice not as unusual behavior, but as an extension of the same kinship logic that governs Awa social relations with other humans. The Awa's territory has been legally demarcated as indigenous land by the Brazilian government. The demarcation has not stopped the incursion. In 2012, following a Survival International campaign, the Brazilian government sent in authorities to remove illegal settlers. The removals were temporary. The Awa are not dying because their way of life is obsolete. They are dying because what they live on is wanted by people with chainsaws and legal connections, and the forest they have managed for generations is being replaced by cattle pasture at a rate that is visible from satellite. They are being erased, not by time, by economics, and that distinction matters. 10 communities, every one of them alive right now, today, as you watch this. What they share is not primitiveness, not failure, not a refusal to change. What they share is continuity, an unbroken line of knowledge, practice, and adaptation running from before the first city was built to the present moment, carrying in it solutions to problems of survival, identity, and meaning that modern civilization has been trying to solve with increasing complexity for 10,000 years. The Bajau's spleen is larger than yours. The Hadza have been in the same landscape since before your ancestors left Africa. The Sentinelese chose their isolation deliberately and have maintained it for 60,000 years. The Pirahã have a relationship with time and language that 40 years of academic study have not resolved. None of them are waiting to become something else. The question is not what they are missing. The question is what we lost when we decided their way of life was the thing that needed to end.